So in the previous lecture, we talked about, in the first lecture, it was how to print any statement on the screen. So in the second lecture, we worked on how to take input from the user. And not only this, we also worked on some data types and operators that are necessary for doing any mathematical calculations and for arithmetics, right? In this lecture, we will talk about some conditions, and here the conditions we are following are if else, and nested if else statements. So in this lecture, the difference is that we are doing the same C++ program. We are executing the same C++ statements, but in this, the difference is that these statements are being executed depending on some conditions. So if certain condition is true, then some statements will be executed. Otherwise, some other statements will be executed. So here for the conditions, we have if statements, if else statements, and we will also work on nested if else statements. We will see the syntax of that. We will see the flow charts, and also we will do multiple examples of each of these. So first of all, we will move toward the flow chart. So flow chart is the graphical representation of an algorithm or a portion of algorithm, right? So how to show the flow of your algorithm graphically, you use certain objects to represent each of the point in your algorithm, right? If you want to show that this is your start of your program or end of your program, you show it using oval object. So you start your algorithm using this oval, and you just write here this is start or begin. So this is used to represent start, begin, or end. And then you have this rectangle object, and this rectangle object is used to indicate any type of action. It also includes a calculation or an input-output operation. So all the calculations can be written in this rectangle object, right? So the third thing is this is the diamond shape object, and this diamond shape object will be mostly used in this lecture, because this is related to the conditions. So these diamonds are conditional or decision symbols. It indicates a decision to be made. So we will write certain condition over here. So if this condition is true, we have to follow a certain path. We have to do some certain action. And if that condition is false, we have to follow some other path, or we have to do some other action, right? Then we have parallelogram, and parallelogram are input output symbols. So if you are going to take an input from user, or you want to show some output on the screen, this can be written in this parallelogram. And the main is these arrows. So these arrows are also called flow of control arrow. These are also called as flow lines. This line basically show the flow of your algorithm, right? It's basically start from one object and moves towards the other object, point towards the other object, and it shows that the process, the control has been transferred to the other object, right? So it shows a complete flow of the program. So where let's suppose if the condition is true, if true, then it will show through the lines, through the path, that now it will move here. And if it's false, it is through these lines, we show that now it will move to the other process or other object, right? Control structure is any statement that alters the linear flow of control of a program. C++ examples include if, else, while, for, break, continue, and return statement. So usually we have sequential execution. Statements are written in a sequence file and executed in the sequence file. This is usually called sequential execution. But if there is any alteration in the linear flow of control of a program, like if there is some alteration, like usually we have statements are executed, like one statement is executed, then second statement is executed, then third. Now, this is sequential. But if instead of execution of second statement, we the control goes towards some other part of program, some other statements might be executed. So there is an alteration in the linear flow of control of a program. So there is a transfer of control. Next statement to be executed may be other than the next one in the sequence. So instead of sequential execution, we might have some other statements to be executed. It means that now control is being transferred to some other part of the program instead of executing it in sequence wise. So there are three control structures. Sequence structures. This is simple. If the programs are executed sequentially, one statement, then second, then third. The program which is written in a sequence wise, all the statements will be executed in that manner in the sequence wise. Then second, you have the selection structure. So depending on some conditions, if, else, and switch statements, there is the execution of the statement. If the condition is true, certain statements will be executed. Otherwise, some other statement will be executed. Or you can have multiple statements, and a specific statement is executed depending on using this switch statements, right? So sequence structure, second, selection structures depending on some conditions, right? And then you have repetition structures. Repetition structures are those structures in which we have while, do, while, for loop. So it's a loop. It means that certain statements are executed in a loop again and again. Let's suppose if a loop says that to repeat these set of statement 10 times, it means the same set of statements will execute 10 times. So the same statements are executing in a repetition manner. These statements are repeating, and this repetition is depend on some variable, right? So we have repetition structure in which some statements are executing again and again in a loop, right? Here our focus will be on selection structure, in which we will be working on if selection structure, if else selection structure, switch selection structure. In this lecture, we will talk about if and if else, and this switch selection will be in the next lecture. So if selection structure, perform an action if condition is true. If the condition is true, you have to perform an action. And if the condition is false, skip that action simply, right? But in the if else selection structure, if the condition is true, perform an action. And if the condition is false, perform some different action. So the difference between if and if else is that when the condition is false, it skips the action. But in if else, if the condition is false, it performs some other action, some different action, right? So it's like simply you can say if condition is to do this task, and this is n with if selection structure. If else, if the condition is true, do task 1, otherwise do task 2, all right? In the switch selection structure, we perform one of many different actions depending on the value of an integer expression. So you have different actions, action 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So using switch selection structure, we directly select one of many actions, right? So it depends on some integer expression. Let's suppose it says switch to, let's suppose it says go to action 5. So it will switch to, let's suppose, depending on some integer value, and in that integer we might have a value 5. So it will directly go to the to perform action 5 out of many actions, right? Now come toward our main C++ if statements, right? Um, an if statement consists of a Boolean expression followed by one or more statements. So here is the syntax. We just write this keyword if, then you have a round bracket, and in the round bracket we have some Boolean expression. So what is the Boolean expression? The Boolean expression, it's such type of expression which returns either true or false. So just like if x is less than 10, so if the value of x is less than 10, its result will be true or 1, right? So if the value is not less than 10, then this Boolean expression will result in 0 value or false. So here is the syntax. You just write this if keyword, then you write this round brackets, and within round brackets, you can have any type of Boolean expression that results in either true or false. And then you have these curly brackets. These are the curly brackets, and within these curly brackets, these are the statements which will execute if the Boolean expression is true. So if this condition is true, if this condition is true, then these statements will be executed. Whatever the statements are there, all these statements will be executed if this condition is true. It's simple, the same C++ program, but here there is an extension that we just executing the certain set of statements depending on some condition. That if condition is true, these statements will be executed. Here is the flow chart specifically showing the if statement, right? This is a part of your algorithm. This is it's not a complete program, right? It's just a part that specifically show the if statement. So here is the diamond box. Why diamond box? Because diamond box is used to represent some conditions in your program. So this is the diamond box, and it contains Boolean expression. If this Boolean expression is true, action if true. So you perform this action. And if it falls, it just go to the end, right? It just skip this action. This is the path, and there is nothing in this path. It just skip this action, right? If it's false, and then it will go move towards the other process. Maybe this is the end of program, right? So this is a quick example. Here you have IOStream, same namespace std, then you main function. In the main function, you declare a local variable int a and initialize with the value 10. So if a is less than 20, right? If a is less than 20, then then you have to print a is less than 20, right? Here we initialize a variable a with value 10. So depending on this value, we are putting some condition on this value, right? On this variable value. If a is less than 20. So it's the same, I told you, the syntax is just write the keyword if, then put these round brackets, and within these round bracket, you put some Boolean expression. Here we are putting some condition on value of variable a. So if a is less than 20, within these curly bracket, whatever the statements is, these statements will be executed if this condition is true. So here we are executing that print a is less than 20, right? So if this condition is false, right? If this condition is false, then these statements will also not execute, right? then come towards the remaining part of the program. So this statement will always be executed, whether the condition is true or false, because this statement is out of the block of if statement. This is these curly brackets. This is specifically the block of if. So the block of if is starting from here and ending at this, and this statement is out of the block of this. So there, this statement has no associativity with this if statement. It will always be executed because this is out of the block of if statements, right? So value of a is whatever the value of a will be printed, right? So the value of a is here 10, right? And this will also be executed because this is a is less than 20. So this will be printed a is less than 20. And then we have on the screen value of a is 10. These both statements will be executed. So these type of logical operators can be used within the Boolean expression of if statements. So the condition is you can check x equal to 10, x not equal to 10, x less than 10, greater than 10, less than equal 10, greater than equal 10. So all these Boolean expression, and the result of all these Boolean expression is either true or false. Other you can have compound operators, and here you can have multiple expressions. Like here, this is one Boolean expression, and this is the second Boolean expression. And here we are using and. So what is the logic of and? If the both operands are 1 1, then its result is true, otherwise it's false. So if this Boolean expression is true, a result in true, and this Boolean expression result in true, so the true and true becomes true, right? And if this x is equal to 1 or y equal to 2, if one of these expression is true, then the result will be true, otherwise it will be false. Then you have a logical not. So it's depending on the value of x, right? It must be true to execute the further statement. If selection structure, right? This is one of the example of if selection structure. Here the pseudo code is if student's grade is greater than or equal to 60, print passed. So if the student grade is greater than pseudo code, already know that this is one of the informal language. You just write the statements in English, right? So if student grade is greater than or equal to 60, print passed. So the corresponding C++ code is, so here we are talking about we have to have on a check on student's grade. So there must be some variable to save the student's grade. So here the student grade is saved in the variable grade. So this is the grade, and we are going to check the value of grade. So if grade is greater than or equal to 60, right? If student grade is greater than or equal to 60, then print pass, C out passed, right? It's simply if keyword. Then in round bracket, you write this grade, and if it's greater than or equal to 60, you have to print passed. Now the corresponding flow chart is that you have a grade greater than or equal to 60. If it's true, then print passed. Else, you have to do you have to move forward, right? And you skip this task. So this is the diamond. One of the side is true and one of the side is false, right? So the decision can be made on any expression. Is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now this is a program. Here the program is the same C++ program. We have two integers, num1, num2. Uh, we prompt the user enter two integers, and I will tell you the relationships they satisfy, right? So we are prompting the user to enter two integers, and I will tell you the relationships they satisfy. So to take the input from the user, we use cin, and we need two variables to hold two values for integers. Num1 will be used to hold the value of first integer. Num2 will be used to hold the value of second integer. And now we are going to put a condition on these variables. If, using this if statement, if keyword, we are going to check the relationship between these two integers. So if num1 equal num2, we will print this statement. Num1 equal to num2. We will give this message to the user that numerator num1, its corresponding value will be printed, is equal to num2, the value will be printed, right? And then we are checking some other conditions. If it's not necessary that these are equal, there are other relationships between that can be used to between two integers. So if it's not equal to num2, then this will be printed that num1 is not equal to num2. So here we are just using the variable names. What does it mean? If we are using variable name in C out, the corresponding values will be printed on the screen, right? So it is without double quotes. We are just writing the name of the variable. So whatever the value this variable contained will be printed on the screen. If num1 less than num2, so this will be printed. Greater than num2, this statement will be printed. Less than equal to num2, this statement will be. And then you have this statement. If it's greater than equal to num2, this will be printed, and then this is the end of program. So just what you do in this program, you prompt the user to enter two integers, then you take the inputs from the user, and then you are checking all the relationships that can have between two integers, whether these are equal, not equal, greater than, less than, greater than equal, right, less than equal. So you just check them and show that on the screen. So enter two integers, and I will tell you the relation they satisfy. So what the user enter? User entered 35, and then he entered 30. So 35 will go in num1 variable, and 30 will go in num2 variable. So these, so first one was you have to check num1 equal to num2. Are these equal? No. So it means that this statement will not be executed. Then 35 not equal to 30. Yes, condition is true. So this will be printed that 35 is not equal to 30. So look at this. Here it's printed that 35 is not equal to 30. Then you have a num1 less than num2. 35 is less than 30. It's false. It's greater. So this greater one will be printed on the screen. So 35 is greater than 30. Similarly, 35 is greater than or equal to 30. This statement will be printed. So or means whether it's greater or it's equal. So it's greater. So one of the condition is true. So this will also be printed on the screen. Uh, so here you have other execution of the same program. Here the user enter 25 and 25. So both the integers are equal. It means what will be printed on the screen? 25 is equal to 25. Then 25 is less than or equal to 25. 25 is greater or equal to 25. So here you have or less than or equal, greater than or equal. So these integers are equal. So this will be true, and these two both statements will be printed on the screen. Then you have another execution. Now the user enters some value in which integer 1 is less and integer 2 is greater. Here he entered 10 and 20. So 10 is not equal to 20, this will be printed. 10 is less than 20, this will be printed. 10 is less than or equal to 20, this will also be printed on the screen, right? So you must also notice that in the syntax I told you that if, then you have a round bracket, you have some boolean expression here, and then within the curly brackets you have some statements. Here you can notice that there is no curly brackets here, right? So if you have a single statement with you, single statement, this is only one statement, there is no need to write curly brackets. You can, and you may not write these curly brackets for a single statement. The single statement will automatically be associated with its corresponding if statement. So this is the statement, this will associate with this if. This is the statement, this will associate with this if, right? But if you have multiple statements, like if you have this statement one and then you have another C out, you are printing some other, then it's must that you write these curly brackets here. So another statement for checking the of conditions is if else statements. So if the statement can be an if statement can be followed by an optional else statement which execute when the boolean expression is false. So here is the syntax. You write the keyword if, then in the round brackets you have some boolean expression, and then in the curly brackets these statements will be executed if this condition is true. So if this condition is true, these statements will be executed. Else, you write a keyword else. For if else, you write the keyword else. Then you have curly brackets and you have some other statements that will be executed if this boolean expression is false. So if this boolean expression is true, these statements will be executed. If this is false, then else statements which is associated with else will be executed. So statements will execute if boolean expression is true. And here in else, statement will execute if boolean expression is false. So you can have certain programs like if x is less than 10, print x less than 10, else print x is greater than 10. So if condition is true, this will be printed, and if condition is false, this will be printed. So you have to do some other task, other action if the condition is false, right? So here is the flow chart which clearly explains you that you have this diamond shape object, and in the diamond shape object you have to specify a certain boolean expression. If this boolean expression becomes true, it's true, then it will follow this path, action will be true. And if this is false, some other action will be performed. So remember that in if statements, there was nothing in this false path. This false path, there was nothing here. There was no action here. It was just a flow line here, coming from here and meeting this point and moving forward. But in if else, this is the main difference, that in the false path, we have some other actions to be performed. So if it's true, it follow this path. If it's false, it follow this path. And in both the paths, we have some actions to perform. So here is a quick example of if else statements. It's very simple, same. If statement is same, just you have to write else statement as well. So here value of a is 100, and we are going to check on the value of a. So here we are writing the condition that if a less than 20, if the value of a is less than 20, then print this, do this task, and the task, do this action. Here the action is to print a less than 20. Else, if this condition is not true, if this condition is false, then print a is not less than 20. A is not less than 20, right? So here print this value of a is a, whatever the value of a will be printed. So here the block of if is the corresponding statements of if are these, and the statements of else are these. So if the condition is true, this will be executed, else this will be executed. And then this statement comes under the remaining part of the program. This is out of the block of if else just end at this point. So these are just simple the C++ statements without any conditions. This is the remaining part of the program. It must be executed whether the condition is true or false, right? So if we look at the value of a, it's simply 100. So if a is less than 20, no, the condition is false, right? It will come towards the else part. Here it will be printed a is not less than 20, right? This will be printed. So this will be printed a is not less than 20. And then this is end of if else block. And then you have the statement value of a is a. So the value of a is whatever the value is contained in a will be printed on the screen. So what is the value of a here? It's 100. So it's simply 100 is printed on the screen. So is it clear?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
What is clear to you? What is if statements and what is if else statement? What we do in that? So आप बता सकते हैं कि if statement is true, if और if else में क्या difference है? जी if और if else में कोई difference बता सकता है? आप लोग सोए हुए? जी आप लोगों को आप में से कोई बताए मुझे कि if और if else में क्या difference है? तो if और if else में ये difference है कि if condition is true, we perform some action, and in if statements we just if the condition is false, we just skip that action. But in if else statements, we if the condition is true, we perform some statement associated with if, and if it's false, then we perform some other action. So if the condition, the similarity between if and if else is that if the condition is true, in both the cases we have some condition, some action associated with if that will be printed on the screen, right? But if the condition is true, if the condition is false, then what happens in if statements? That action will simply be skipped. But in if else, some other actions will be performed, right? So here is the single and compound statements. So if I already told you that if you have a single statement, then it will automatically be associated with if. So this lecture is very important because the assignment that I gave you is actually more related to this lecture. You will be using if statements to do your programs, right? So if condition is true, you have to execute this true statement, else false statement, and there is no curly brackets because this is only the single statements. But if you have multiple statements, then these statements will be enclosed in these curly brackets, right? Here is the pseudo code. If student's grade is greater than or equal to 60, you have to print passed, else print failed. So the corresponding C++ code is, if grade is greater than or equal to 60, print passed. For printing, you use C out passed. Else you print failed, right? So this is C++ code for if else statements, right? Here is the flow chart. So in the diamond, we have written grade greater than or equal to 60. If it's true, it will print passed. If it's false, it will print failed. So there is also some action on this false path in if else selection structure, right? Now you have a compound statements, right? It's the same that if grade is greater than or equal to 60, print passed. Using cout, you print passed. Else, you are not only printing failed, but also you are printing in the second statement you are printing, you must take this course again. So these are two statements, so we enclose these statements within these curly brackets, right? So this else part is being enclosed in these curly brackets. Why? Because there are multiple statements. This is the statement one, and this is the statement two, right? So so this is the same program if you want to see this. So this is the program hash include iostream using namespace std, right? Then you have a variable a which we assign a value 10. So if a is less than 100, right? So here I print that a is less than 100. If the condition is false, but I will print a is greater than 100. And also I'm printing valid value a, right? So here the value of a is 10. So this condition will be true, and what will be printed on the screen? A is less than 100. So when I'm going to build this and then run this, after running this, what is printed? A is less than 100. Why? Because the value of a is 10 here, right? So now if I change this value to 110, right? And now I'm saving and build it again, then run it. So here what is printed on the screen? It's printed that e is greater than 100, a valid value a. So if you look into this program, here the value is 110. So this condition is false now. A is less than 100. This condition becomes false. Now it moves towards the else part. So the else part, it has multiple statements, and now they are enclosed in these curly brackets. So whatever the statements are there in within these curly brackets, all these statements will be executed. So what it print? A is greater than 100, valid value a, right? But if I remove this curly bracket, what will happen? So if I remove these curly brackets are used to show that all the statements within the curly brackets are associated with this else block. But here I remove the curly brackets, simply remove the curly brackets. What will happen? Anyone who can tell me what will happen? जी, आप में से कोई मुझे बताए कि क्या होगा अगर मैं ये कर्ली ब्रैकेट्स हटा दूं प्रोग्राम से? कर्ली ब्रैकेट्स लगाने का क्या फायदा है?
The statement will not be executed.
कर्ली ब्रैकेट्स हमने लगा दी, इसका मतलब है कि सारी की सारी स्टेटमेंट एल्स के साथ है। अगर कंडीशन फॉल्स होगी तो ये दोनों स्टेटमेंट्स जो है एग्जीक्यूट होंगी, राइट? लेकिन यहाँ पे हमने क्या किया कि कर्ली ब्रैकेट्स हटा दिया यहाँ से। ठीक है, कर्ली ब्रैकेट्स हमने यहाँ से हटा दी, इसका मतलब है कि ये अब एक सिंगल स्टेटमेंट बन गई है। ये वाली स्टेटमेंट जो है एक सिंगल स्टेटमेंट बन गई है, और सिंगल स्टेटमेंट जो है ऑटोमेटिकली एल्स के साथ एसोसिएट हो जाएगी। ये भी एक सिंगल स्टेटमेंट है, देखिए ये भी एक, दिस इज ऑल्सो सिंगल स्टेटमेंट एंड दिस इज एसोसिएटेड विद इफ, and this now becomes a single statement and this will be associated in with else, right? And now this statement valid value a, this comes out of the block of if else statements, right? These statements now become out of the block of if else, right? So whether the condition is true or false, this will always be executed. This is the difference. And in the previous case, when we have these curly brackets, what will happen? If the condition is false, then this statement will be executed. If the condition is true, only this statement will be executed. The output will be this one. If the condition is false, these both statements will be executed. But what if I remove these curly brackets? What is the effect of removing these curly brackets? It shows that the else part has only a single statement, and this single statement is associated with this else part, and the next statement comes under the remaining part of the program. It has no associativity with this if else block. So whether the condition is true or false, this statement will must be executed. So, but if I make it again 10, let's suppose I now change the value of a 10, right? So, what will happen? This will be skipped. The condition is false here. This will be skipped, right? And then it will come in the else part. So, this will be executed and this will be executed. Now, I just build it and now run it. So here value of a is less than 100 and also valid value a. Now this statement valid value a, this comes as the remaining part of the program. Now if the condition is false, so I'm again building it and I'm run this. So now the condition is a is greater than 100. A is greater than 100. Now A is equal to 110. So here the condition is false, and else part will be executed, and then again this statement will be made. So if you remove the brackets, whether the condition is true or false, in the previous case, two valid value A was printed. And in this case, two, we have this print on the screen, valid value A. So in both the cases, this statement will be executed, valid value A. Why? Because this statement comes in the remaining part of the program. It has no associativity with this if else. So whether the condition is true or false, doesn't matter, this statement will be executed. But if we want that this statement must print if the condition is false, so we must enclose this part and in these curly brackets. So these curly brackets shows that all these statements will be printed when the condition is false. So if condition is true, this will be printed, and if the condition is false, this will be printed. And if we remove these brackets, this statement will always be executed. So this is the main difference. If you have the curly brackets, and if you don't have the curly brackets, right? So without braces, you must take this course again. This will be printed on the screen, right? So it always be executed. This statement will always be executed if you don't put these brackets, right? So here is another example. Here you have a temperature. Here you have the normal temperature 98.6. You put its values as 98.6, and then you have a variable named temperature. Now you are prompting the user to enter your temperature. Enter your temperature. You give this message using cout, and then you are taking the value of temperature from the user using cin. So cin temperature, right? So here you this the text which is written, the statements which is written in green color, um, these are specifically for the if else statement. So if temperature is greater than normal, so if temperature is greater than normal, we are checking on the value of temperature, that the temperature value is greater than normal. Then print what you have to print. You are sick, take rest, and drink lots of fluids, right? This will be printed. It means that if temperature is greater than normal, this will be printed. Else, if else this condition is false, then what will be printed on the screen? You are perfectly fine, right? So here is the output. Here we prompt the user to enter your temperature. So what he entered? He entered 100. So 100, it means that it's greater than normal temperature. So what will be printed on the screen? You are sick, take rest, and drink lot of fluids, right? Then if we again execute this, at this time, enter your temperature. uh, he enters 98. Now what will be printed on the screen? You are perfectly fine, right? So depending on the conditions, we execute certain statements. So if the condition is true, we have some action to be performed, and if this condition is false, we have to perform some other action, right? Here is the flow chart, which clearly explains you if selection structure program. This is program one, and here you have if selection structure, and this is a complete program. It's starting from the start and ending this stop, right? And here this is an example of if else structure, right? Here is a complete flow chart explaining you the if else structure, right? Using flow chart. So this is the flow chart. Here you have this oval shaped object, and we have written here start. Then you have a parallelogram. Here enter the part number and the price. And then you have this diamond shape object. Here what we are doing, we are putting some condition on this part number, right? If part number equals 203, if part number equals to 203, if it's true, then price is equal to price multiplied by 1.1. And then we are displaying the price increase. We are displaying this message on the screen that price increase. And if this condition is false, then we just skip all these actions, and we will move forward towards the remaining part of the program. So here display the part number and price. Just display the part number and price. So if the condition is true, after performing these actions, it will again come to the remaining part of the program. So this is the same remaining part that I told you in the previous examples, that whether the condition is true or false, after this, these statements will always be executed, right? And then this stop. So there is some action on the true path and there is nothing on the false path. You just skip this action in if selection structure. This is the program one, right? Now we have a if else selection structure. Here, this is the start of program. Enter the sales. Um, uh, we are taking some inputs for sales, and now we have a condition sales greater than 1500. So if condition is true, right? If sales is greater than 1500, if this condition is true, then what will happen? Commission is equal to 0.02 multiply with sales. This is the commission formula, right? If this is false, then what will happen? Commission will be 0.01 multiply with sales. So there is something on the false path. There is some action to be performed on the false path too, right? Where? In if else selection structure, right? And then whether it's true or false, doing their corresponding actions, then we will move towards the remaining part of the program, which is the display the commission and then stop. So the big difference between if and if else is that in the if selection structure, there is nothing in the false part, no action. Simply you just skip this action. And if else selection structure, what is happening here? You have some action in the false path. So you have a certain action in this false path. So if it's true, you perform some task, and if it's false, you perform some other task. So it's clear from these flow charts that this is there is nothing in the false path, but there is some other action in the false path between if selection structure and if else selection structure, right? Now the corresponding code for the previous flowcharts are for the program one for the if selection structure. So here is the same, right? Enter part number. You have to and user will enter some value, and that value will go in part number. Then you are prompting to enter price. Then a corresponding price will be entered, right? And this colored statements, red colored statements, is specifically for to checking the conditions, that if part number equal to 203, this one, part number equal to 203, this thing is being coded here. If part number equal to, for checking the equality, you must write double equal sign. If part number equal to 203, then what? How you will calculate the price? Price is equal to price multiplied with 1.1. So if it's true, this will be calculated price equal to price multiplied by 1.1, and then we print price is price, right? And this is end of the program. Program one. So enter part number. He entered what? 200. Uh, 200. So 200 is not, is it equal to 203? No, the condition is false. It just skip this statement, and what will be printed? Nothing will be printed, right? Then you have enterprise. So there must be, uh, sorry, there must be brackets here. Um, So if the condition is true, only then price is 100 will be printed. So there must be curly brackets here, right? So if condition is true, then price will be changed, right? If this is equal to 203, then if part number is 203, then price is equal to price multiplied by 1.1, and then you print the price is whatever the price is. So here entered part number is 200. So um, no, sorry, it was correct, right? This is correct program. It is just enter. This will be printed. Enter part number, and then he entered the part number. Then you have the enter price. Price will be entered. So if the condition is true, you have change in the price number, and then price will be printed. But if the condition is false, right, this will not be executed. So whatever the price is will be printed on the screen, right? So here is the output. Enter part number. He entered 200. Then he entered price. Price is 100. So simply whatever the, so 200 is not equal to 203. Simply whatever the price is printed on the screen. Price is 100. So here part number is not equal to 203. So what will happen if the user enter part number 203? Here the condition will be true, and then he will enter the price. Here the price is 100. Now price is being multiplied with 1.1. Condition is true. Price is now price multiplied with 1.1. Now the price is changed, and the value of price is now price is 110, right? So actually this statement is printed. This statement is being executed because this condition is true. He entered 203. This condition is true. The price is increased, and then it's printed on the screen that the price is 110, right? Now this is an example of program 2. Here is corresponding C++ code that if sales is greater than 1500, then you have to do this. You have to execute this statement. Commission is equal to sales multiplied by zero point 0.2. Else, commission equals to sales multiplied with zero point 0.1. So if the condition is true, this commission value will be this one. Else, commission value will be this one, and then this statement will always be executed, right? Commission is commission. So whatever the commission value is will be printed on the screen. So here is the output. Enter the sales. We prompt the user. If he entered 1500, so simply commission is 150. Sales is 1500, and then the sales is greater than 1500. uh, uh, if he entered 1600, which is greater than 1500, then the commission is 320. Now there is another example of if else. Here you have to write a program to calculate the gross pay of an employee. So this is here. What is the condition that if here the employee is paid at his basic hourly rate for the first 40 hours. So for the first 40 hours work during a week, right? He will be paid as his basic hourly rate, right? Any hours work beyond 40. If his hours are greater than 40, so any hours worked beyond 40 is considered overtime, right? And what is the rate for overtime? Overtime is paid at 1.5 times the hourly rate, right? So there is a program in which our purpose is to calculate the gross pay of an employee. So for the first 40 hours, it's the same as the basic hourly rate. But beyond 40, it will consider an overtime. And for the overtime, we have this formula that it will be 1.5 times the hourly rate. So if total number of hours greater than 40, so if total number of hours is greater than 40, it means now it's becoming in this category, this overtime. So gross pay equals to for 40 up to 40 hours, it's just 40 multiplied with rate plus Now, total number of hours minus 40. These hours are for overtime, right? For overtime, and for overtime, this is being multiplied with 1.5 multiplied by rate, right? Then else, it means that if total number of hours are less than 40 or equal to 40, then gross pay is simply normal rate multiplied with hour, right? So the corresponding C++ code is like this. If R greater than 40, gross pay equal to rate multiplied by 40 plus 1.5 multiplied by rate, and then in we have R minus 40. So this is simply the up to 40 hours, and then this is for the over rate. So complete when you add these both up to 40 and for the overtime, this complete will become its his gross pay. Else, if it's less than or equal to 40, it means that it's the same gross pay rate multiplied with R. So what will be printed on the screen? Simply gross pay is whatever the pay becomes, it will be printed on the screen, right? So this is an example of if else, right? So enter the hourly rate of pay. So what is the rate of each hour? It's 8.5. Enter the number of hours worked. So he entered 30. So 30 is less than 40. So gross pay is simply 30 multiplied with 8.5, right? For hour less than 40, right? When we again execute it, now at this time, you have the enter the hourly rate of pay. It's same 8.5. The hourly rate is 8.5. Now we prompt the user to enter the number of hours worked. So he what he worked, this is 60. So now 60 is greater than 40. It means this will also include overtime. So overtime plus normal or rate calculation, these will be added up to give you the gross pay, right? Is it clear? जी क्लियर है या नहीं? आप लोग कोई रिस्पॉन्स नहीं दे रहे, क्या मसला है?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
नहीं, बहुत आप लोग डल बने हुए हैं, क्या क्या बात है? रमजान की वजह से?
मैम आवाज आ रही है?
जी जी, आपकी आवाज आ रही है,
यस यस
लेकिन आप लोग
यस।
बिल्कुल एक्टिव नहीं है आप लोगों की क्लास। मतलब दिस इज द थर्ड क्लास, यानी कि मंडे को मेरी 8 बजे सेक्शन ए के साथ क्लास होती है, देन सेक्शन डी, अभी सेक्शन सी के साथ क्लास होती है। तो आप लोग ऐसे डल से होते हैं, बिल्कुल कोई जवाब भी नहीं दे रहे। और
वो तो रमजान वजह से होता है
अच्छा,
ना,
लेकिन
ज्यादातर
ठीक है,
वो
आप
भी है
लोग
ना,
मतलब ठीक है रमजान है, लेकिन
क्लास
मुझे
क्लास अटेंडेंस भी पूरी नहीं है ना।
जी जी, लेकिन जो लोग हैं कम से कम वो सुन तो रहे हैं ना,
जी जी बिल्कुल।
तो कम से कम समझने की तो कोशिश करें ना। लेकिन
जी
मैं
जी
रमजान
वो
में
तो
बोल
है।
रही हूँ, आप लोगों का काम है सिर्फ सुनना,
नो में
थोड़ा सा समझना,
समझ रहे मैं।
क्योंकि ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट लेक्चर है ना। आपकी जो असाइनमेंट है वो इससे से भी रिलेटेड है। इसी तरह
यस
से
यस
आपको
मैं बिल्कुल
इफ
इसी से वो
स्टेटमेंट्स
देखे।
और इफ एल्स स्टेटमेंट्स जो है वो यूज करनी पड़ेंगी।
बिल्कुल कल देखा था वो, तकरीबन इसी लेक्चर के उस पर है।
ठीक है, अच्छा, आप लोगों को समझ आ रही है तो ठीक है, अगर नहीं समझ आ रही तो फिर क्या फ़ायदा। मतलब मैं ऐसे ही बोल रही हूँ, मतलब मुझे तो अच्छा नहीं लगता ना कि मैं इसी तरह से बोल रही हूँ, मुझे लग रहा है कि जैसे किसी को कुछ समझ नहीं आ रही हो। ठीक है, इतना मुश्किल नहीं है, ठीक है, इट्स नॉट टू मच डिफिकल्ट, इट्स जस्ट बट वी स्टडीड, इट्स जस्ट सिंपल इफ you have some condition, and depending on the conditions you are executing certain statements.
यस यस
Uh,
मैम।
and then if else, it means that if the condition is false, you are executing some other actions, right? Some other statements which is associated with else keyword, right? So it's not too much difficult. we are just doing some examples, right? Multiple examples, so that we have much more clarity about these if and if else selection structures. Now here, it's the same if else selection structures. The previous program that we did with if else selection structure, here simply we can also use, this is another way. We have the ternary conditional operator. This is the question mark and then the full colon. This is called ternary conditional operator. So whatever we write, that if grade greater than or equal to 60, then we print passed, else we print failed. So here the same statements can be written using ternary conditional operator. So C out, we are going to put a condition on this grade greater than or equal to 60. Then you have a question mark. So you are checking this condition. Question mark means checking some condition. So if this is the condition, if this condition is true, so whatever the statements or the whatever it's written here will be executed. So if this condition is true, so if the value is true, this will be executed. Else, after this full colon, whatever here, if the value is false, this will be executed. So this is the if part, if condition is true, and this is actually the else part. So all those statements which we write in multiple statements, and there was a complete block for if else, that can be written in this form as well, in this single statement, right? So it's simply a question mark. Instead of using if, we write here question mark using ternary operator. This is question mark and full colon. Using question mark, we are checking the condition. If a grade is greater than or equal to 60, then this will be executed. Else, this will be executed. So this if else is being shrinked here in a single statement using ternary operator. So here we simply just write C out here, and then we are just putting this text over here. So C out, which what to see out, what to print. We have to print either passed or failed. So depending on the condition, whether it will be printed or this will be printed, right? So whether passed will be concatenated with here, or failed will be concatenated here, right? So this is what is the meaning of this statement. So next, the value in the conditional can also be actions to execute. For example, the same can be written in the form of actions, right? Here we have put this condition here. Now I'm putting this condition at the beginning. Grade is greater than equal to 60, then you have this question mark. So first I'm checking the condition, then if the condition is true, this will be printed. Sorry, this will be executed. This action will be executed. So what's that statement? C out passed. So here I write first C out and then checking the condition, and then concatenating these strings with that, text with that. But here I'm just first checking the condition, and then I'm executing this statement. If the condition is true, it will print passed. Else, it will print failed, right? No, this is simply an example of a ternary conditional operator, right? And this is also for if-else selection structure. Another way of writing this if-else using ternary conditional operator. So this is the last of our lecture. This is nested if statements. So nested if statements mean if there is some other if statements within if statements. So here is the if statement, right? And the start of this if statement is from this curly bracket and then ending to this curly bracket. So this is a complete block of if. When the condition is true, all the statements which are contained in this curly bracket will be executed. So we will execute when these statements when the Boolean expression is true. But we found that within this if block, there is another block of if. So there is another if block. If Boolean expression 2. If Boolean expression 2 is true, then you have some statements that will be executed. So this is also called the inner block, inner if block. This is the outer block and this is inner block. So if this condition is true, only then we will enter in this if block. And when we enter this block, we found that there is another if block. So this if block will be executed only if Boolean expression 2 is true, right? But if Boolean expression 1 is false, what will happen? A complete block will not be executed. This complete block will not be executed. Even this Boolean expression will also not be executed. If Boolean expression 1 is false, we don't allow it to enter in this if block, right? And it's the same that like this is your house, right? This if expression, Boolean expression 1 is your house, and within your house you have your room, right? So this is inner block is just like a room in your house. So if you don't allow anyone to enter your home, so how he can enter your room, right? But if you right, it's the same case. So this is the outer block, this is the inner block, right? So this is nested actually. So if you don't allow anyone in your house, he cannot enter your room, right? But if you allow you, it's also possible that you allow someone to enter your house, but you don't allow a person to enter your room, right? So it's depending on the conditions, right? So there is a quick example of showing you the nested if statements. Here we are just simply taking the simple examples. Here we declare A and B. A value is 100 here and B value is 200 here, right? If A equal 100, right? We are checking the condition if A equal to 100. Yes, the condition is true. A is equal to 100. So a condition is true. We will enter this block. When we enter this block, we found that there is another if statement, and but it's checking if B equal to 200. So B is we assign 200. We initialize B as 200. So again, this condition is true. It means that we will enter this inner block and all the statements here will be executed. So what the statement here, value of A is 100 and B is 200. This will be printed on the screen. And now this is end of this inner if block, and then this is end of outer if block. So this complete nested if block has been ended up here. Now these two statements comes under the remaining part of the program. So these statements will always be executed. Exact value of A is A, means what is the value of A? It's 100. It will be printed on the screen. Exact value of B is 200. So 200 will be printed on the screen. Here is the output. The conditions are true. This will be printed on the screen. Value of A is 100 and B is 200. Then these two statements are executed. Exact value of A is 100 and then exact value of B is 200. So this is how this program works, right? So if the if let's suppose value of A is 2, let's suppose if value of A is 500 here. So simply this condition will be false, and this will also not execute these statements, right? This statements will not be executed, and simply it will what will be printed on the screen? Exact value of A is 500, exact value of B is 200. This will be printed on the screen, right? And this statement will not be executed. It will not even try to go. If this condition is false, it will not even try to execute this. It will out of this block, right? So here is another example, which is the nested if-else statements. It was in the previous example. This is only if statements within if you have another if block. But here you have if statements, then you have else. In the else part, you have another if else. All right. This is an example of nested if else. So you have if statement, then you have else part, and within the else part, you have another if else. This is the case in this example. So let's see this example. Here we are asking a user to enter an integer. So he entered some integer value, number, and we are going to check uh, on the value of this number. So here what we are checking, here we are checking if number greater than 0, then what will be printed on the screen? You entered a positive integer. If the value is greater than 0, it means this is a positive integer and it's being printed on the screen that you entered a positive integer. Else, if the condition is false, it will go to the else part. But in the else part, he found, but you found that there is another if else statement. So if the condition is true, simply this will be printed, and no need to go in the else part. No need to go in the else part. Else part will only be executed if this condition is false, right? If this condition is false, it will go to the else part. When you go in the else part, you found that there is another if else. So if number is less than 0, if number is less than 0, if condition is true, what will be printed on the screen? You entered a negative integer. Else, you entered 0. If this condition is false, else, what will be printed? You
You
entered 0.
entered 0.
Yes, you entered 0. So you enter an integer, and you are basically checking whether the a number is positive, whether the number is negative, and if both if neither the integer is positive, negative, it means it is 0, right? So you entered 0. And then this statement, which is out of the block of if else nested if else statement, this is out of this block. This comes in the remaining part of the program. So this statement always be executed because this is outside nested if else statement, right?
Yes.
So here is the output: entered an integer 0. You entered 0. So he entered 0. So this will be printed on the screen. You entered 0. This one will be executed. And this will also be executed. This statement always be executed because this is outside the nested if else, right? So basically, if else, and in the else part, you have another check if else, right? This is the case in this example. And now here is another this is, I think, the second last program which we are going to see, right? Here is consider an example of a program segment that is set gender code and print gender according to that code. So if the gender code is F, right, you ask the user to enter the gender code. So either he will enter F or M, right? And if other than that, it will be come under invalid code. So if the gender code is F, print female. Else, if the gender code is M, print male. Else, print invalid code. So if gender is F, if it's false, right, it will come in the else part. But in the else part, he found that another if else. If it's M, then we will print male. Otherwise, we will print invalid code, right? So this is the pseudo code of this program, right? This statement. Pseudo code is simply informal language, right? Now, what will be the corresponding flow chart? It's very interesting to see this, right? You have a diamond shape. First of all, you are checking this if statement. So you must have some diamond shape to check this condition. So if the gender code equal to F, right? Yes. If it's yes, then display female. If it's false, it means it will follow this path, no. And in the no, it means that this is the if path, right? If the condition is true, this is if path, and this is else path. This
else
is the
part,
same
yes.
if else, right? So here in the else part, you have again if else. Uh, in the else part, you have again if else part. So if the condition is true, then he will display a mail. If condition is false, it will display it invalid code, and then you have the remaining part of the program. So it's complete. It is a part of a flow chart for this program part, right? So this is the corresponding C++ code, right? Here we are asking the user to enter gender code, right? If gender code equal to, if you are checking some value, then it must that you write this double equal sign. And then let's suppose he entered capital F, right? So look at this character, right? This is capital F, and it must be enclosed this in this single quote. If you are checking some character value, like this is if the user entered F, so in the code you must write here single quote, right? You must enclose the character value in single quote. So gender code equal to F, then print female, else in the else part we have again this if else. So if it's M, print male, else invalid code, right? So if even if he enters small f, there is no check for small f. So it will give you message invalid code. If he enters small m, there is no check for small m in the code, right? In the code there is only a check for capital F and capital M. So the corresponding messages will be printed. Otherwise, invalid code will be printed on the screen. So there is a check sequence wise for if the condition is true, this will be executed, and this complete statements will not be executed. Simply it will out of this if else block, nested if else block, right?
मैम ये सिंगल कोटेशन मार्क को थोड़ा रिपीट करें.
So here we are in the previous all examples we had some variable integer, right? Or
Yes,
and integer value we had some value like 10, 150, all these things we can simply assign integer constant like this. But here gender code, this is its data type is character. It means it's going to take some character values, and in
yes, ma'am.
order to take the character values, it's must that you must enclose that in this single code. If you don't write this single code and you just
Okay.
write this f, it means that it will assume that this is some variable which is not being declared in the program at the beginning, right? So you have
Yes,
to tell
yes,
the
ma'am.
compiler that this is not a variable, this is a character constant, and you will show that that in the single code, right?
Yes,
So for a single character, put this single code, right? And for this is the string, and you usually for the string you use
yes.
these
We
double.
use a double quotation mark
Yes.
for string.
This is the last example of our lecture in which we are explaining the nested if else structure, right? So following is the pseudocode of nested if else. What is the pseudocode? If student's grade is greater than or equal to 90, right? Then print A. If student grade marks this is greater than or equal to 90, it means he got A grade. Else, if student's grade is greater than or equal to 80, if it's greater than 80 or equal to 80, it means print B grade. Else, if you have greater than or equal to 70, print C. Else, if student grade is greater than or equal to 60, print D. Else, it means that if all these conditions are not true, the only grade we have is F. There is no need to have a check on else part, just else and then print f. So if the condition is true at this point, So simply print A, grade A will be printed, and there is no need to go in the else part. In the else part, we have another nested if else statements, right? In the else part, we are again checking if else, and then in else part, we have again if else, and then in again else part, we have if else. So there is a complete nested if else in the else part of if else, right? So it will just print one grade. Look at this, it will only give you one grade. So if it's going in else part, if this condition is true, right? So only this B will be printed and no need to go to the else part, right? So it will out of this if else block right from this point. No need to go further because this is true. So no need to go to the else part. So this we will be out of this if nested if else block right from here, out of here. So it will just print single grade for each student, right? Here is the C++ code if grade. So there must be something, some variable that contain the grade value. So it's a part of your C++ program. From before this, you might ask the user to enter a grade, then he enter some value. That value will go in the variable grade. So if grade is greater than or equal to 90, then you have to print A. Else, if grade is greater than or equal to 80, print how to print using cout grade B. Else, if greater than or equal to 70, print C. Else, if greater than or equal to 60, print D. Else, print F. So this is how it will be executed. It means greater than or equal to 90, the range is 90 and above. And this is 80 to 89, this is 70 to 79, 60 to 69. And for less than 60, you have F grade, right? So this is the C++ program, right? So is it clear?
यस मैम, वो बीच में
Yes,
आप
ma'am.
थोड़ा सा रिपीट अगर कर दें.